Okay, so as I mentioned when we began, you would have received 3 rolls of ribbon with your kit. Some of them may have been 2.5 inch, and some may have been 1.5 inch. So for this selection, we actually have 2 1.5 inch rolls and 1 2.5 inch roll. The combination doesn't make or break. So no matter what combination you have, this will apply to every wreath kit. I brought my sign out because I want to show you a really simple way to make ribbon tails by using your sign. So this particular sign is 12.5 inches long. Now, most of the signs that come with my kits are 12.5 inches, so that works perfect. Some of my signs are 15 inches, but not very often do I do kits with a 15-inch sign. So check your sign. If it's a 12-inch sign, 12.5 inch sign, it's perfect because, and I'm actually going to use the sign that doesn't have any pipe cleaners on it, because it's your measuring tool for your ribbon tails. How awesome is that? So what we're going to do is we're going to cut some ribbon tails using our ribbon, and so, or using our board. So I'm going to just lay that over the edge a little bit right there. Let's see. See how I'm kind of crinkling that over the edge so it kind of catches right there? And I'm going to wrap this around my board. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and take off this so it doesn't annoy me. We're going to wrap this around, and we're going to do that 12 times because we have 12 twist ties. So we're going to do 12 wraps. You're going to do 6 complete wraps, but you're going to end up with 6 on this side, 6 on that side, for a total of 12 ribbon tails. So I'm just going to take my scissors right underneath that ribbon, and I'm going to do it on the back side of the board so I don't mess up the sign. And I'm going to cut those in half, and I'm going to take the opposite end, and I'm going to cut those in half, and we now have 12 ribbon tails. Just like that, right? So we're going to repeat that with 2 different ribbons. The choices of ribbons that you use for your ribbon tails are up to you. I'm only going to cut 2 ribbon tails. So again, I'm going to take the ribbon and kind of wrap it around the edge there, so it's kind of hanging on. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we should have 6 full loops, with which will come out to be 12 ribbon tails. So now we have 2 stacks of ribbon tails, this one and this one. All right, let me zoom in just a little bit more here. And on the ribbon tails, and I do more than one at once, but I'm going to show you, I fold that ribbon tail in half towards itself. So this is like the ugly side of the ribbon. This is the pretty side. I fold it ugly side in, and I fold it in half. I take my scissors and I cut a V shape right off the edge so that we have a cut towards the wire. So always cut towards the wire. This is the wired edge, and when we open it up, we have that pretty little dovetail there. So that is how you can dovetail your ribbon. And so we're going to dovetail, make that little V shape in every one of our ribbons. And I actually will do 2 or 3 ribbons at a time, depending on how thick it is. So again, I'm just going to cut that towards the wire. Fold it in half, cut it towards the wire. Scissors come out right where that ribbon was cut to begin with. And there is our dovetail. All right, so let me show you what happens to your ribbon when you do, let's just say that my cut is elongated, right? So if I go really super long, my dovetail is going to be super long compared to this. So you can get different effects on where you do your cut. Then if you don't do much of an angle at all, you're going to end up with a short dovetail. So it's going to be depending on, and that takes a little bit of, I won't even say practice, because it's more of what your personal preference is. This style is what I enjoy working with, and it's that type of cut that I enjoy working with. But there's other people, and there's no rules that says it has to be at a specific angle. So y'all, this is where you get to be creative and do what looks good to you. If you don't like it, it's ribbon. You can cut it again. All right, so now we're going to take our 2 ribbon tails and we're going to stack them. So I'm going to take one of the green and white, or green and black, and stack it right on top of our Frankenstein. I'm going to fold that in half and crease it so I can find my middle point, and then I'm going to pinch that together, pleat it, pinch it, whatever you want to call it, and kind of give it a V shape here. So I'm going to pleat that in the center, lift it up so that it's not laying flat anymore, and now we're going to take that and we're going to place that right inside one of our pipe cleaners. And again, I always start at the outer edge so that I'm not working over. So if I already had the top done, I would be laying my arms on it. So this way I have those out of my way. And I won't be messing with it. So when you add your tails, you'll want to do one horizontal and bring the other one away from your wreath. So I'm bringing that away from my wreath. Let me show you from a different angle. So I have this ribbon kind of horizontal, and these 2 pointed down away from the wreath. We're going to repeat that process all the way around the outside of our wreath frame. Is when you're adding your ribbon tails, you want to push them as close to the frame as possible. So when I add this into my pipe cleaner, I am pushing it all the way down to the bottom. So I'm trying to make that as tight as possible and as close to that wreath frame as possible. Now that we've gotten all of our ribbon tails on here, can you even see where the flaw is? So it's already, so now it's like, well, where's Waldo? So it's already camouflaged pretty good, but I know that the flaw is still sitting right here. So guess what? Guess where my sign is gonna go? Right over that spot. So now we're gonna take our sign, we're gonna take our pipe cleaners, and we're gonna go down through the mesh and attach this to our frame. Through the little checks of the mesh. Just, the pipe cleaners will just work right through them. Don't separate the mesh to fit your pipe cleaners through. Just wiggle them down through the weave of the mesh and come out on the other side of the frame. And I'll show you the back side here in just a moment. So I'm gonna do both of this side. And sometimes I just have to turn it over and find out where the little sucker's hiding at. I can feel it. And it's best practice to add your sign before you add your bow, and this is why. So if you have to turn this upside down and you've already got your beautiful bow attached, guess what? You just smashed your bow. So I do the sign and I attach it before I add my bow. So here is one of my pipe cleaners from one side of the sign, and here's the other one. So I gave that a couple of good twists around the wire ring. I'm not going to secure it yet until I get both sides on. So let's work on the other side and work that pipe cleaner through the mesh. That one went very, very easy. And we'll get the other one. Hopefully it'll go as easy as the first one did on this side. Oop, I think it did. All right. Do you see how, before I turn this over and tighten this down, I'm not smashing down my mesh. So you don't want to put it so tight that it's pushing in on your mesh, right? So you just want it gently laying on top of your mesh, but you want it secure enough that when you shake your wreath, it's not moving all over the place. So if it's not jiggling all over the place, like this side is a little loose. So now I'll turn this over. I'm gonna untie this and I'm gonna tighten that down just a wee bit more because it is a little loose on that side. But I'm not gonna tighten it down so far that I'm gonna break my pipe cleaners, or I'm going to smash down the mesh and the ribbon tails, because by golly, I worked really hard and that's gorgeous ribbon. And so we don't want to smash it down. We want it to be beautiful and flowing and a part of our design, not hidden behind our sign. So there we go. We've added our sign. Sign placement. All right, so this sign is a vertical sign. If you have a horizontal sign, or vice versa, Your placement is going to be different if it's standing up this way. So you're going to place it along the right side or the left side of the wreath. And how this one, I put it not all the way to the bottom, but towards the bottom. And just stop and think before you add your sign, where are you going to go with this? So if we add a bow, where are we going to put a bow? You can actually move it over and do it like cattywampus, so it's more offset over here. So if you wanted to maybe move it further over this way, again, you can do it here. You can put it up at the top and add a bow down here. So wherever you place your sign is going to be your personal preference. But for today's purposes, I'm just going to go more towards the center, but not all the way to the bottom. See how much space we still have at the bottom. We can still see our ribbon. We can see some of our mesh, and part of that is still peeking through. And then our final step is we're going to add a beautiful bow right up here on top. And once you got your twist ties or your chenille stems, your pipe cleaners, cut off that excess. And look, y'all, I didn't have that much left. Give them a couple more twists. And then take those edges and just fold them back in towards the mesh. You don't want a customer to jam their finger, poke their finger with the sharp wires that could be protruding from that. So I always give them a twist back and then put them in towards the mesh so no one potentially jabs their finger with it. So I'm going to set this off to the side here, and we're going to get our Bodabra out. So our Bodabra is spring loaded. And for this, you can use a pipe cleaner. You may actually want to use 2 pipe cleaners and join them together. So I always choose a pipe cleaner that matches or is going to coordinate with my ribbon. So in this case, I'm going to use white. So I'm just making a longer pipe cleaner. That's all I'm doing. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it down here on the bottom of my Bodabra. So in between here, I'm going to slide that right there. So when I get done, I can pull up my ribbon. My pipe cleaner's already there. So for this bow, and again, there is no right or wrong over that. So first of all, we're going to dovetail our end. Give it that little V cut. And you have to decide how long you want your ribbon tails. So for this particular wreath, I'm actually going to measure out about 8 inches for the tail. I'm going to pleat that together, squeeze it together, and I'm going to slide it right down in here. And so there is a ribbon tail hanging out of there. Now I'm going to take my ribbon and give it a twist so that my ugly side is facing up and my pretty side is on the outside. I'm going to slide that into my Bodabra at the same time twisting. And now I have a loop on this side. Now on this particular bow, I want about a 6-inch loop. So let me measure that, and he's more 5-inch, so I'm going to give him just a little bit more. And this just takes practice. The bow is actually probably the most tedious. So that is now about 6 inches from the center of my Bodabra. I gave it a good twist so that my ugly side is showing here. When I loop around, I have nothing but pretty side over here. I'm going to twist my ribbon. And right here, I hold them up together and I'm like, are they even? Are they about the same? If not, I can make minor adjustments wherever I need to. So they're about the same. Ugly side here, pretty side here, twist. So we're gonna do 4 loops on the bottom. And y'all, it doesn't matter if you do 2.5 inch ribbon on the bottom or 1.5 inch ribbon on the bottom or 4 inch on the bottom. You can place the ribbon wherever you like it. So if you want to start with a 1.5 inch ribbon, start with a 1.5 inch ribbon. If you want to start with 2.5 or a 4 inch, then go right ahead. Now on this last one, I didn't twist because I want the pretty side up. I'm going to come out about 8 inches and we're going to dovetail that one. So that's what it looks like at this particular point. We have 2 loops on each side. 1, 2, we have a tail over here and a tail over here. For this one, for this bow, I'm actually going to bring all the tails forward. So this is where a patterned ribbon does make a difference because he's upside down over here and he's right side up over here. I'm not going to sweat it. Now we're going to take our next ribbon, and it doesn't matter what order you go in, and we're going to make our tail just a little bit shorter than the one before. Give it a twist. Make a loop, and this loop is going to be just a little bit shorter than the first one. So if our first loop was 6 inches, we're going to make this one about 5.5. So we're going to repeat that, twist, and the whole time I'm like pushing down in the center. So I want all of these loops to be about 5.5 inches long. And again, don't get out the tape measure. It's an approximation. If you visually see that there's a huge difference, make adjustments where needed, but it doesn't have to be an exact science. Okay, for this last ribbon, I'm going to give you a little bit of a different angle so you can see straight down on it. I'm going to take our next 1.5 inch ribbon, and I've already put the dovetail on it, and we're going to add that in and twist as I'm putting it in. This tail is just going to be a little bit shorter than the tail before, as well as the loops. So the loops are going to be about 1/2 inch shorter. Push it all the way down. Give it a twist as you're going in. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Is it about 1/2 inch shorter? And repeat this. 2 loops on each side. So now we have 4 loops. We've got 2 and 2, but I'm going to take a 5th loop because this is going to be our final ribbon. And this is a really quick way to cover up your mechanics. So what I'm going to do is take a really small loop, and I'm not going to twist it because I want my ribbon coming out to be right side up. And I'm just going to make a short loop about 1.5 inches tall right here off to the side. So it's just going to be a short loop off to the side. Both tails, here's one, here's the other, are going to be on the same side right now. Cut that off, push it all the way down, and now we're going to pull our pipe cleaner up, and I'm going to give it just a small little twist there as I pull all of these ribbons off. So that will keep this from falling apart as I'm pulling it off. That's what it looks like from the side view. I'm going to push it down as far as I can with my fingers right dead in the center. And I'm actually going to turn my pipe cleaner around so that it has that smooth edge there, right? So where I joined them earlier, I don't necessarily want any of that seam showing, or as little of it showing as possible. And I'm going to twist my pipe cleaner one time, and then I'm going to turn my ribbon. So rather than keep twisting your pipe cleaner, turn your ribbon. It will actually make a tighter bow. So now, see that little guy right there? He's actually going to fluff out and cover up that pipe cleaner in the center. So at this point, I do, let's go ahead and dovetail this one. I do somewhat fluff out my bow before I add it to the wreath. However, I end up fluffing it out even more when I get it on my wreath. So this is just kind of a preliminary fluff for me. I'm making sure that I'm getting all of those loops spread out, separated, and we don't want to hide any of our ribbon. So ideally is you want one loop here, and you want this loop to go in between so that it's showing your ribbon below. Same way up here. I'm going to bring all my tails to the one direction. So all my ribbon tails are going to flow downward on this. And so now that you see, I cut the tails different lengths, so it's not hiding the tails underneath. So I'm still seeing all of that. All right, so let's do the same thing on the other side. And that's what I typically do. And if this is your first time, or even you're still learning, you'll get a technique that works well for you. So I'm just kind of lifting up on the ribbon to kind of give it that fluff, that loop to it. So I typically work on one side and then another. And if you've got it tight enough, guess what? You can just pull on these and lift them up and away from your bow. Lift them up and away from your bow. So I'm running my hand, my fingers along the wires and lifting it up away from the bow. And there is our bow. So let's go ahead and add that to the wreath. So here is our wreath. Here's our sign, our focal point. So we're going to add this right up here near the top. Now I like to actually go off center and not dead center on. So from a visual perspective, it just makes the flow go a little bit nicer. So I'm going to set this off to the side. And I'm going to take my pipe cleaners, and once again, I'm going to feed those down through the mesh. And wrap them eventually around the wire frame once I get them fed through the mesh. Do not make the mistake of putting the bow right inside of a previous twist tie, because what will happen is it will suck your bow into that twist tie. And my gosh, you went to all this work to make this gorgeous bow. Let's make it prominent, right? So it now becomes one of the focal points of your design. All right, so I've got that adhered pretty well in the back. Now I can take my bow and I can work it a little bit more. So my tails moved a little bit. I might have smashed a little something. If these tails are too long and they're interfering with my sign, guess what? They go bye-bye. I just cut them a little bit shorter, a little at a time. With it. A lot of people ask me, what do I do with the twist ties or the pipe cleaners that are just hanging out there? Actually, I don't do anything with them. Very, very seldom do I actually mess with them unless I make it a part of the decor. So if I were doing a ladybug wreath, I would actually curl them up, and I just take an ink pen and I wrap them around the ink pen and give them a curl and push that down towards the center. And then those little curls look like little antennae on the ladybug wreath. But honestly, I don't typically mess with them. If it does bother you, that is a suggestion. I would not recommend you cutting them off, because if they ever did come loose, you won't have anything to work with to tighten up your ribbon tails or your mesh if they were happen to come loose. So hopefully you all learned something from this tutorial. Make it your own. If you wanted to make additional bows and add to this as well, you could do that, especially since we offset this off to the side. You could do a smaller one right here. Really, it's just up to your imagination. So thank you for watching the tutorial. I hope I was able to help you with your wreath kit, and I look forward to seeing what you make with your wreath kit.